two senior planners from planning department. First to my immediate left is Lorene Choi. Lorene is the senior planner for the Oakville and Halton Hills communities. And to my far left is Michelle Degar. Michelle is the senior planner for Burlington and Milton. And these two have been quite instrumental in putting the document together. They're the ones that do all the enrollment projections, and they're the ones that I blame when we're off. So they've put a lot of time and effort into this, and I felt compelled to bring them to the meeting. They were at a previous meeting with the trustees in March, and felt that they should be in attendance as well this time around. I'm not going to go through the document page by page with you. I'll kind of hit on some of the highlights and open it up to discussion. As trustees are well aware, the board has developed and updated its long-term accommodation plan in order to meet Ministry of Education requirements, and I believe that this document is probably one of the best in the province.
Mr. Renzel, you had a PowerPoint, didn't you?
Yes.
There it is. Thank you.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that it was part of the presentation. Thank you. He's getting... And you can repeat that last sentence because it was very worthwhile.
For time's sake, we'll continue on. I've got 25 more slides to go through. The LTAP provides enrollment projections for the next 10 years for both elementary and secondary schools in the region. It identifies new capital project initiatives over the next 4 years, school boundary review initiatives, and also identifies review areas in schools that are facing enrollment pressures and decline. As part of the board report, the LTAP is also now posted on, as of Friday, was posted on the board website. New this year, well, we've improved the LTAP from last year. If many of you might see in terms of the document, it's our new version. We've improved. The introduction of the LTAP has added flow chart showing the purpose of the LTAP. We've identified graphically, numerically, the enrollment and boundary issues. We've included a special education summary chart for each municipality and school. We've included municipal profile pages for each elementary review area, reference map. We've redesigned the feeder school lists. We've also redesigned the French immersion feeder flow schools. Historical enrollments by ERA and SRA have been added. Projected enrollments by ERA and SRA have been added. And we've also included the secondary review areas into the municipal grouping. Previously, it was a separate tab. And we've had a new design for the cover page and introductory pages using board colors. So we've really kind of beefed it up this year. Again, all that goes to my, the accolades go to my staff for really doing the major improvements this year. What goes into long-term planning? Well, of course, we look at enrollment forecasts, program delivery. We look at existing school capacities. We have incorporated and identified planning review areas. We look at the utilization of pupil places in schools. It also includes site size, portable capacities of how many portables we can place on each school, and the timing of capital projects. When staff undertakes the enrollment projections, there's a number of factors that are reviewed and updated annually. We look at the timing of new residential developments, and we include and ensure that we have the residential unit types We look at residential sales and closing dates. What we have not included is we've only included the existing residential applications that have been circulated to us by the municipalities. There are some ongoing development that's going to occur sometime in the future, but we have not included them because we don't know the timing, phasing, and actual numbers of units. We've also looked at historical and regional birth data. We look at pupil yield rates of school-age children for each housing type, historical progression factors, basically pupil retention rates, including students from other publicly funded and private schools. And those progression factors look at what's been happening in the school on a grade-by-grade basis, how they've increased or decreased over time. And of course, we've looked at French immersion versus English language enrollments. School utilization, understanding the existing and future school utilization is key to the development of the LTAP, and a number of factors may impact on school utilization. They include the class sizes for JKSK students, the primary class size cap, the program enrollments, special education programs and placements, capacity for portable classrooms on site, and other Ministry of Education initiatives. The region is, the study is of course region-wide, and we've more or less focused on elementary review areas and secondary review areas within each municipality. The LTAP analyzes the accommodation needs of all elementary and secondary review areas, and the need to build new schools focuses on the capacity and enrollment within each of these review areas. And the capacity of neighboring review areas is essential to consider when determining accommodation needs. Just to, again, refresh trustees' memories, the board has approved, as of this February, the Program and Accommodation Review Policy, which complies with the Ministry of Education guidelines released last March. And again, the policy supports a transparent process for decision-making that may lead to school consolidations and closures in order to address declining and shifting student enrollment. And in October of 2015, the board also approved the Community Planning Partnerships Policy. And again, that policy focuses on opportunities to share facilities with community partners when building new schools and undertaking renovations, and considers use of unoccupied space in schools and schools identified to be closed and disposed of. In terms of the capital plan projects, we've recently completed 3 projects effective the 2015-2016 school year. That's the new Udnawi Public School, Boyne Public School, and of course the Heritage Glen Public School addition. We have 2 projects underway right now. That's the new Martin Street Public School, which is expected to open by September 2017, and the Halton Village Public School addition, which is, again, scheduled to open in 2016-27 school year. There's one more project that's in progress, and that's the addition to Craig Kielburger. Elementary projections. Well, we're projecting over the next 10 years an overall increase of about 3%. We're also projected to have about 187 available pupil places by 2025 in 10 years. It basically indicates that we have enough spaces overall to accommodate the students. And again, the overall utilization rate is approximately 100%. Secondary projections, the same thing. We will be increasing by 11% over the next 10 years. We will have maybe about 243 available pupil places by 2025, 2026, with an overall utilization in the board of about 99%, which is great. It's something that we do try to achieve. So overall, right now, we have a combined elementary and secondary utilization rate of 96%. However, within each municipality, there are review areas of significant growth and areas of decline in enrollment. In terms of Burlington, at the elementary panel, there's declining in enrollment in mature neighborhoods, will lead to the underutilization in all Burlington ERAs, with the exception of ERA 109, which basically is the Alton Village Public School catchment area. We're projected to have 2,329 empty pupil places by 2025, with a overall utilization rate of 84%. And there's a number of ERAs that will drop below 80% over the next 10 years. And there's some ERAs will continue to have some utilization over 90%, and those are identified on the slide. Oakville Elementary is projected to have a shortfall of about 555 pupil places by 2025, with utilization of about 104%. Again, the major focus is going to be North Oakville, which is ERA 118, in terms of ongoing residential development. As we've outlined in previous meetings, that the anticipated growth in that community is in about approximately 50,000 people. And as a result of that, we'll likely see the need for 5 additional elementary schools in that community over the long term. And just to reiterate, Unawi opened this year, and there was revised boundaries for River Oaks and Sunnydale Public School, and as a result did provide temporary relief for the North Oakville area. And again, projections indicate that the next school will be required by 2018-2019 in order to provide accommodation relief to Unawi, as well as River Oaks and Munns Public School. Milton Elementary, again, we're still continuing to see a high rate of residential development. The new Martin Street Public School rebuild is underway, and we're anticipating a boundary review to occur in the fall of 2016. ERA 127, that's basically the Boyne community, which is located south of Louis St. Laurent to Britannia Road, has a plan for 6 elementary schools and 1 secondary school. And again, the first elementary school of the 6 is Boyne Public School. And the enrollments indicate that we would need the Milton number 10 school by 2018-2019 and the Milton number 11 school by 2020-2021. Again, all subject to ministry funding and site acquisition. By 2025, it is projected that there will be need for 3,322 additional elementary pupil places in Milton. And if it doesn't happen, we'll have a utilization rate of about 134%. So there is going to be a significant demand in that community. Halton Hills is not really facing any major accommodation pressures. It has some infill development in South Georgetown and some rural estate development. Again, the area is projected to have about 1,150 available pupil places by 2025, with a utilization rate of 79%. However, the town council has approved the expansion of the urban boundary area west of 8th Line to Trafalgar Road and north of 10th Side Road. And preliminary indications are that there's going to be about 6,600 residential units with a projected population of about 19,000 by 2031, with construction starting in 2021. Staff has been meeting with the town on location of school sites, which have currently been identified as 3 elementary school sites and 1 secondary school site in the Georgetown Vision area. So the number in terms of the long-term projections indicates that we'll have empty pupil places, but there will be a need for additional schools as a result of Georgetown Vision. Burlington Secondary. This has been an ongoing issue for the last number of years. Again, the opening of Dr. Frank J. Hayden contributed to an overall surplus of pupil places in Burlington. Currently, there are about 1,890 available secondary pupil places in Burlington, and it's more or less going to be stable over the next 10 years. And there should be about 1,920 available pupil places with an overall utilization rate of 74%. And again, as we've mentioned in the past, there should be some consideration to the potential of undertaking a program and accommodation review for all secondary schools in Burlington. Again, the opening of Garth Webb resulted in reasonable utilization rates for Oakville. Enrollments are projected to increase over the next 10 years, and again, the overall utilization rate will be 110%. An additional 770 pupil places are projected to be needed by 2025. And again, most of those spaces will be required for North Oakville, where 2 secondary schools are planned. And projections indicate that the next, or the first secondary school in North Oakville will be Northeast Oakville. Should be number 1 high school, not number 2. And it will be required by 2020, 2021. In terms of Milton, again, with the high enrollment in the elementary panel, that will, again, transfer into the secondary panel. And we're projecting an overall utilization rate of about 169% by 2025, with a shortfall of 1,532 pupil places. And we've indicated that there's a need for the 3rd secondary school in Milton by 2019-2020 to accommodate the growth in Milton. Again, Halton Hills Secondary, nothing in the next 4 years. The existing schools will be able to accommodate the growth, enrollment growth within the community. And again, if nothing is done over the next 10 years and Georgetown, Vision Georgetown does not occur, we'll have a utilization rate of 82% by 2025. Proposed school boundary reviews. Well, we definitely have to move forward with the Martin Street Public School as a result of the reconstruction and the fact that the school will be opening with 770 pupil places, and we need to ensure that that school is filled. However, at the same time, and nothing else has been added, mainly because the board, we're still waiting for the board-approved recommendations from the program viability review, and that may necessitate the need for future boundary reviews. Again, that outcome is, we don't know. We can't suppose what's going to happen, but once those decisions are made by the board in June, we'll get a clear understanding of what boundary reviews will have to be undertaken in the future. So our proposed capital initiatives that we're identifying over the next 4 years is the Milton number 10 public school for 2018-2019, the Oakville number 2 public school for 2018-2019, new high school in Milton for 2019-2020, another Milton elementary school in 2020-21, and high school in Northeast Oakville in 2020-2021. And submissions are generally requested in the spring, summer from the ministry, with their approvals anticipated in the fall of 2016. That's more or less based on what happened last year, and what we're hearing again from the ministry is that they'll follow the same process. Next steps. Well, subsequent to tonight's meeting, we'll be posting the PowerPoint presentation tonight on the website. Notice will be placed in local newspapers. As well, we'll be sending out email, Center Voice, and press releases requesting the public and community to provide feedback. We will be requesting feedback by April 27th, and then staff will report back at the first meeting in May 4th, and we'll provide them with the feedback that's been collected and summarized. And then once approved by trustees, the LTAP will be forwarded to the Ministry of Education. As well, we will notify all the entities in the Community Planning Partnerships notification list of the LTAP that the LTAP has been approved, and directing to the board's website to review the electronic document just for their own planning purposes and interests moving forward with any potential partnerships that may occur in the future. And glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. And I must say, having looked through this whole document, that is probably the best laid out and easiest to read that I have ever seen in all my years as a trustee. So thank you very much to all of you involved in making this document the way it is, and everyone that is not here as well. It really is a testament to improvements every year, and this year is definitely the best in my opinion. Are there any comments or questions for our presenters tonight? Trustee Collard.
Thank you. And echoing the chair's comments, an absolutely stunning job. It's much easier to read every single year, and we get more and more information from it, so it's a pleasure to read. My comments are in reference to page 3 of the report. There are 2 places where there is mention of a phase-in of the primary gifted program. And I just wanted to make sure that we have corrected for the next meeting. The gifted placement is not a program. It is a placement that is governed by the IPRC process. And we no longer have a delineation between primary and the grade 5 to 8. It is one placement. However, it sometimes is split into 2 different schools just for accommodation purposes. So it's no longer a primary versus a 5 to 8 program. It is a gifted placement. Thanks.
We will make the changes, not only in the board report, but the LTAP itself, because there's a lot of references to the program aspects. So we will make those changes before it comes back to the board in May.
I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Oliver.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you very much. I really like the full report. I think it's an excellent summary of the data and excellent synopsis of the information for us and for our school communities. I also really like the staff report, which quickly summarizes and all the information and helps to pinpoint what the kind of pressures are at which schools and through which areas. With respect to the presentation, I just have a point of clarification for Oakville. It stated that 2 new secondary schools would be required in North Oakville, and I take that to mean Northeast Oakville, correct?
Correct. It's the Northeast Oakville secondary plan area. So basically, the area east of 60 Mile Creek to Trafalgar, past Trafalgar to 9th line.
Okay. And to follow up, given the anticipated development north of Dundas in Northwest, so kind of north of Ward 4, is there any thought about how those students will be accommodated? Does that cause pressure?
Basically, Northwest, are you referring to the north of Dundas Street? That area is more or less employment lands. So there is, with the exception of some pockets of, they're looking at some residential development right adjacent to the hospital, but most of the land is is all for employment lands, extending from the Burlington border right to 60 Mile Creek, with the exception of a small pocket of high-density residential development right next to the hospital. Did you want to add any? Is that? No, we can't reach it.
There is also talk of the, I guess what they're calling the Palermo Hub, which is along Regional Road 25 in north of Dundas. At this point in time, there is expected some high-density residential. I do know that piece of the secondary plan is at the OMB, and at this point, there's they don't really know how many people are or how many units are expected to be built in that area since it's still at the board. But in any case, those numbers have not been included in any of the projections, and it's unknown in terms of what the impact of that area will be.
Okay. And is there a date by which we might know what those numbers will be? We don't know that. Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'd just like to echo Trustee Oliver's comments, and thank you for that. I think as the LTAP improves, we've seen an increase in usage from the community, and I think that certainly from a partnership perspective, allowing the community access to this really important document helps them, be aware of what the issues are affecting our board. And so that we're sharing this information transparently, and that they know what it looks like. I'd just like to restate the obvious, and particularly for the Burlington secondary school community, which, as your presentation so well pointed out, while Halton is increasing in population, we have a decrease in our high school populations in the Burlington area. And the report, once again, recommends that we undergo a PAR for this community. So while I'm restating the obvious, I do want to remind our board that in Burlington, our coterminous board is undergoing a school PAR as well at the elementary level, though, not at the high school level. So there's a lot of sensitivities around this, and I just wanted to bring this up in an effort to ask the director if he could speak to the timeline for the ARC announcements and whether there's further information that we can share with our public so that they can follow this process with us. Thank you.
Director Miller?
Through you, Chair Amos, to Trustee Reynolds and to all trustees. And Senior Manager Renzella will jump in if I'm incorrect in my information. But once the LTAP is approved and goes to the ministry for approval, we will then undergo a community consultation process as per the new policy around CPP. And when that comes in, that would likely be May, June-ish when that comes. So we would not anticipate any recommendation coming before this board, prior to September of the new school year. So we're looking hopefully early September, but if not, late September for any kind of announcement around a park.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I just wanted to expand on the Coterminous Board's process. As you can well imagine, it's a pretty sensitive process. My discussions with the Coterminous Board has been the community has been totally taken by surprise. And I have to say that, they do not do a long-term accommodation plan, so their communities have not been aware of this tsunami of empty people places. So the last one they did was a few years ago, and now they're starting to revisit that. So we've been more or less over the last number of years been advising the community that this is coming, and so they've become aware of that, and so they should not be surprised that something will be coming from the board.
Thank you. Follow-up, Trustee Reynolds?
Yes, thank you. I just would like to thank our board kindly for that, because part of our efforts to be very transparent, be very proactive in sharing this information and engaging them in our efforts is, I think, huge to the work that we're doing. And while this is not always an easy conversation, we're completely open with it, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, Director Miller.
And through you, Chair Amos, to all trustees, I just wanted to say publicly that there have been rumors out there, and there are rumors about particular school closures or openings or consolidations, and I want to assure the public that we have not entered into any of those conversations yet, and we would not enter into any of those conversations before a recommendation appeared in front of the trustees. So when I know that many of us have heard those rumors. I can categorically say that those rumors are exactly that. The rumors are untrue. We have had no conversations at this point.
And just to clarify, the recommendation initially would be just to have a program and accommodation review. It wouldn't be about any school in particular.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Trustee Pappen.
Thank you. Through the chair, my question had to do with the PAR review for secondary schools in Burlington, so I thank you for clarifying that for us.
Thank you. Trustee L. Harrison.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for your presentation and for all of the information in the LTAP. My questions are related to Southwest number 1 and Trustee Reynolds over there. asked a lot of the questions that I was going to in terms of the relationship between this document and the initiation of a potential PAR. So I just wanted to confirm with Director Miller whether you were thinking the potential timeline of bringing such a report would be similar or different, or?
Director Miller.
Through you, Chair Amos, to Trustee L. Harrison and all trustees. The timeline would be essentially the same. It might vary by a month or two. There is one caveat to all this, and that's the work of the Program Viability Committee, as that may have an impact on how we deliver French immersion and where those schools will be and so on. So that recommendation will be coming to the board, I believe, in May. And then that we'd have a better idea. But the timelines for Southwest Oakville are essentially the same. If they vary by a few weeks.
Can I follow up?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. So one of the things that I heard when I first was fortunate enough to come to this chair is just around our projection methodology and the accuracy of our projections. And since that time, you have been very proactive in terms of posting our methodology online. In response to a query that I made, it was noted by yourselves that you meet with staff from around the province, and our methodology does reflect best practices out there. And I was just wondering whether you could comment on, I guess, the accuracy of those projections over the last couple of years. So that is, how do they stack up to what actually happens? So our projection is what it is today. How well have we done? Thanks.
Mr. Renzo?
This question comes up every year, and as I said, if we could predict the future, we would be all driving Ferraris and having our name in the Panama banking system. But anyways, generally speaking, it's hard to predict the accuracy overall. Let's say last year we were off in terms of projections for this year by, at the elementary panel, it was maybe 100 students. And at the secondary panel, it was probably less than that. So we are really, as you move forward in the projections, of course, there's other variables that come about. So, but I would say we're 99% accurate.
Thank you. Trustee Graves.
Thank you. Part of my comments through your chair is to thank all three of you for coming to speak to us. I know because of the weather there was a delay. Mr. Renzel wasn't able to join us, but the discussion we had at the committee of the whole was excellent, and I know you didn't even get through your presentation before we got into a great sort of conversation with trustees, which is a testament to the hard work that the trustees do in looking through this very, very carefully. And I see a lot of the comments and questions reflected in this updated version, which I think makes it more readable for the public. So I want to thank you very much. This is an excellent document. And then for the second part, obviously I think the document clearly outlines the pressures that Milton is facing in the next few years. So I want to thank you for highlighting that very clearly. And I'm looking forward to the ministry requests for capital projects and ultimately approval for new schools in Milton. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Gray.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. First of all, I'd like to just make a comment about the projection rate of accuracy tonight. That's amazing, and I'm wondering if that could leverage anything into a lottery ticket or something, if you could help us with that. But that being the case, that is amazing, and it is an extremely complex and very difficult process to come up with an enrollment projection across the board, across so many regions of geography, and with so many different circumstances happening. So congratulations to you and your team on that commendable projection rate of accuracy. My question relates to page 9. 9 of the report tonight, paragraph 3 at the top, and it's just a quick question about Georgetown South, number 3. Public school, which has been identified on the east side of Mountain View. Now, in the paragraph above, we look at Ethel Gardner continuing to require portables over the next 10 years with an OTG utilization at about 124%. In your next paragraph, you talk about Georgetown South really being the timing of that being associated with the accommodation pressures, and you're referring to it as the development of the Vision Georgetown area. But I'm wondering, too, though, wouldn't it also somewhat be considered for the accommodation pressures that we see already in your projections over at Ethel Gardner, and couldn't that also be accommodated in this report? I guess the second question I would have would be 124%. What are we comfortable with in terms of OTG over a long period of time?
Let me go to the first question. And I think what we're looking at is, and implicitly we could maybe identify those other schools as part of that analysis. We envision that with the opening of Vision Georgetown, there is likely going to be and typically is with new development, a delay in terms of when the students show up, which usually is first, and the time frame in which new schools are built. So there is that time delay, and we know that we have to accommodate the students somewhere. They're either going to go into Ethel Gardner, Silver Creek, which may then push some accommodation into the Georgetown number 3 school site. So that's what we're implying. Maybe we can spruce it up a bit and clear it up to kind of reflect that. The number one, in terms of the second question, the utilization is basically, and I don't know what it is in terms of the school itself, Ethel Gardner, but basically we do plan for up to 12 portables on the school site, and that could push the school up to 130, 35%. Our biggest concern is once it pierces the 12 maximum on a school, that we run into some problems. And as you can see as well, Silver Creek's enrollment is declining. So if there is any challenges there, we could, maybe do some boundary changes between the two. But Vision Georgetown is probably the biggest question mark at this point in time, is what's going to happen and how is it going to impact on those adjacent and neighboring schools.
Thank you. Trustee Harvey Hope.
Thank you. I have one comment and a question. In many of the different areas, it talks about, trying to find the quote here, decisions made by the school principal could potentially increase classroom availability. That's a phrase that I saw in a few places, and I was just wondering if you could elaborate. I think I know what it means, but perhaps you could elaborate, and then I'll ask my question.
The former director told me to put that in there. A lot of times there's some fun.
You know he's sitting behind you.
A lot of times there, and if I recall, there is a lot to do with the secondary schools. There is some flexibility in terms of timetabling and lunches and whatnot, that they're able to increase the flexibility. And in other cases at the elementary panel, not many, that they may be able to use classes that may be designated for a spec ed room, and there's no special education class at that school, so they could be used. So, that they can use that in terms of their discretion.
Dr. Miller.
Through you, Chair Amos, to Trustee Harvey Hope. To be a little more specific, many of our secondary schools, and there are very good community reasons and cultural reasons in secondary schools to have single lunches, but sometimes a single lunch may put pressure on the ability to utilize classrooms. When you have two lunch periods, that obviously you can spread out over a lunch period and so on. So that's one example, a more specific example around that. But I would emphasize that there are real good reasons for doing single lunches, and some of the principals around the table here could give you those if you ever want them.
Former principals.
Principals, I mean.
So my question is about ERA 113. And EJ has 6 portables. It was creeping up slowly, and I'm expecting that bulge any time now since we've had 4 grade 1 classes for quite a long time. So it says in there you're working on it. Could you tell us what you're working on? Because September is coming fast.
Well, facility services is working on it, but interesting enough, I got confirmation just before the meeting that they can accommodate up to 10 portables on the school. And that has to do with a significant upgrade to the electrical system. Yeah. So anyways, they have, we found, we've been able, or facility services has identified that the school can go up to 10 portables. But we just found out just today, this afternoon.
So that means that there is a windfall from the park that we did and the upgrade to the electrical at the time. So, okay. Yeah.
Director Miller?
We'll have to see how that plays out.
I would just like to say thank you, Senior Manager Renzella, for giving us that information. The sweat beads were up here about EJ James, so we're good to go. Let's pack them in.
Or case we might get the staff room back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Gervens.
Hi, this is just with respect to the, just clarification actually, with respect to the developments that are in North Burlington, and if they have been included in the projections, because I'm sure a lot of the public want to know that.
Yes. And there, of course, there's always lots of development in North Burlington. The MB development, which is west of Walker's, north of Dundas Street, the little triangle, that has been included because they've had a draft plan of subdivision on that site for a number of years. The Evergreen development, which is at Tremaine, north of Dundas, just on the west side of Tremaine, has not been included because we have not got any detailed information, and it's not been approved by the municipality at this point in time. And anything else, such as the application for those high density, they have not been included. They have? They have been included as part of the projections, yes. Yes.
Thank you. Trustee Oliver.
Thank you. So on the flip side, when we look at the underground OTG capacity and over and underutilization, is there kind of a threshold for underutilization at which point we say we need to look at the school?
In what respect? We currently in our board policies on program and accommodation review, one of the criteria looking at school closures is 60%. And a lot of it has to do now with ministry funding and how they've starting to claw back on the funding. So 60% is one. Now, we have to also look at that in the context of how the neighboring schools are. Are they overcrowded? Can we do some boundary changes in order to accommodate some of the overflow, and or if they're over capacity, and which we have done in the past, those are, but if there is no if there's no additional students to relocate to that school, that would come under a program and accommodation review. But if there is an opportunity where we have underutilized space and there's overutilized schools adjacent to it, there's a strong, we could move forward with that. Again, that also depends on the will of trustees and the will of the community, because we've had some communities who've come to us and said, we love portables, don't move us. And so I think we've taken the position, just to kind of keep it relatively consistent. But again, as Director Miller has mentioned, we are moving forward with this program and viability. So this whole question of underutilized space, and especially at the elementary panel, is going to be really interesting in terms of what may or may not happen moving forward.
Thank you. Trustee Harvey Hope.
Sorry, just a follow-up. Since the information that you just gave me to the answer to my question is literally hours old, are we going to update this LTAP document to change that little number and make red go to black for the next version? Or are we, I mean, I don't know what the plan was. And then I guess just my request to facility services, when we put the 7th and maybe 8th portable, we've been zigzagging across the property the last couple of years. If perhaps we could just be careful how we line them up so that the sight lines, and I think it's to do with how far you have to be from the building, and the building has a little indent. But anyway, the idea being, I'm trying to fictionalize where they're going to put these number 7, 8, and 9. But in the meantime, right now it's like showing oh my goodness, where are we going to fit them in September? You've told me that's solved with putting in the order for another portable or two. Is this going to be updated?
We will try to make the changes. Some of the smaller changes can be made right away. Our biggest challenge is going to be making all the changes and going through the document with respect to the gifted placement program wording and whatnot. So we'll see what we can do. And it doesn't, I don't think, I think the numbers will be the major consideration. We can update the other document wording moving forward. Yeah. So, and again, it's a living document, and anytime we make a change to the document, we'll make sure that it's identified in the LTAP and on the website.
Thank you. And seeing no other speakers, I have one. Regarding ERA 118, it says that the alternative relief would be River Oaks Public School and Munns Public School. And I had thought that would be Sunningdale, because until it goes to the other side of Trafalgar, then it would capture the students from that side, and then they would go. But on the west side of Trafalgar, they should probably stay within the same community, and I had thought that was supposed to be Sunningdale.
You're referring to the new school?
No, it says that the new school will provide relief to River Oaks Public School and Munns Public School. But Munns Public School is only east of Trafalgar.
And you're absolutely correct. East of Trafalgar Road is coming on faster.
Oh, I know. I see it every day.
So, and so, as you're well aware, Munns has its own critical capacities, and we'll need to look at it in the context of if and when we get approval from the ministry, that
maybe they're listening.
That we would include the Munns and River Oaks as part of that analysis. So yes, so that's what.
But if homes come online in that area in the short term, they would be going, before a new school's built, they'll be going to River Oaks and Sunningdale or Munns, dependent on where they live, right? So
correct.
So there's may need to be some relief to Sunningdale as well.
Sorry, if you're talking about west of Trafalgar, for French immersion, they go to Udanawi.
Well, so that whole area's now been.
So no one from north of Dundas should be going to Sunningdale.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
Yes, because that boundary for the French immersion Udanawi goes right up to Trafalgar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
Okay. So it would be the 9th line piece, and everyone right now will still go to White Oaks until the new high school's built. Okay. Which we may need sooner than later, the way it's growing too. Okay. Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Director Miller.
Yeah, I just I just sure wish there was some people in the ministry here tonight so that they could hear some of those comments.
I'd like to invite them to drive along Dundas and then maybe along into Milton. But you have to go all the way to Trafalgar and then up. Anyways, thank you for coming tonight. Seeing no other comments or questions, thank you very much for your presentation tonight and coming. You've heard from many of us, thank you very much. This document is fantastic. I believe the public will be able to go through it, and it's very plain and easy to understand. And we will make sure that everyone out there will tweet and will share the fact that it's on the website and that you're looking for feedback. So thank you very much.